G'day battlers, and today we are diving straight into the Might and Mastery season for the first Go Battle League meta of the season, the Willpower Cup Great League Edition. Now, it is going to be alongside the Open Great League, so obviously a lot of people are going to be wanting to jump straight into that, but the Willpower Cup is here to give you a bit of something different. Now, for both metas, I did actually upload a video going through the move updates for the season, because there are a lot of them that are really going to change up the meta, so I recommend watching that video first, just to get a sense of what this meta is going to look like, and then we can dive into the Willpower Cup, which, as it says at the bottom of the graphic, is a Great League Cup with Fighting, Psychic, and Dark type eligible, with a single ban on Gardevoir. Now, Niantic has been doing some sneaky ninja bans recently, so check the pinned comment down below, because I'll update that if there are any sneaky bans that Niantic adds into this particular meta. But last thing before we get into it, if this content is useful to you and you want to see these meta simplifieds coming into your YouTube feed in the future for all of the metas to come, including the Scroll Cup coming in a week's time, please do go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Definitely it helps out. But with that said, let's get into the meta, and of course we have to get our thumbnail shot as well, But with that out of the way, let's get into it. So we've got four main groups on the graphic over here, and then we have some key core breakers, going to be mostly pretty big in this meta as well, down below us. We'll talk about the main graphic first though. So over in the left-hand corner, over in the top, we have the sort of Psychic type group, where we have Galarian, Rapidash, Malamar, Hatterene, and Gallade. Now, Hatterene and Gallade are both going to be Charm users, so you can sort of guess how they're going to go. Galarian Rapidash is a bit of a Swiss Army knife, and you've got a lot of viable moves in this particular cup, but we'll talk about it in a minute. So anyway, let's talk about the groups, I guess. DarkPoisons right next to me, the Drapion, Skuntank, Galarian, Slowbro, Alolan Muck, and Hisuian Qwilfish. In the bottom left-hand corner, we have this sort of anti-Dark-Poison, anti-Fighterish sort of group, where we have the Mandibuzz, the Sableye, and the Hakamo-o. And then the bottom right-hand corner, we have the Fighters in Primeape, Annihilape, Pangoro, and Medicham coming in as well. So anyway, let's talk about that first group, the Fairies slash Psychics. The Fairy damage is really going to be what's really big in this group, and is really the reason why Malamar is sort of the worst of the four, because it just doesn't do as much as the other three. Charm is obviously going to rip through the Fighters. It is obviously going to rip through Pokemon like Sableye, like Mandibuzz, like Hakamo-o that has the Dragon fighting typing, just going to absolutely crush through. Similarly, Galarian Rapidash has that Fairy Wind that is going to add up as well, and pretty much all of its moves are good. Body Slam, Wild Charge, Mega Horn, High Horsepower. You could almost run any combination of those moves, and Galarian Rapidash would be entirely runnable in this cup. Now, I was doing a lot of sims with Wild Charge, which is a little bit of a sim hero, because you always get the bait with Body Slam and you land the Wild Charge, you do tons of damage, everyone cheers, everyone claps, and you get trophies and all. It doesn't always work like that, and so Mega Horn might be a little bit more consistent. You also have the benefit of hitting all of your other Psychic type compatriots for pretty big damage as well. The benefit of High Horsepower obviously being hitting the poison types instead. So it really just depends what sort of coverage you need, and what is going to be most useful to your team of three. Malamar is kind of just there as well. Let's move to the DarkPoisons though. They're going to be obviously the main things countering those Psychic type users. They don't care that much about the Charm damage, because they do have that Dark typing, and the Poison damage can really add up onto these Pokemon as well, especially Galarian Rapidash, and the Dark type damage just adds up to the rest. So all of them are pretty decent. Drapion is always going to be the best because it has such good pacing. It only takes 4 Poison Stings to get to its Aqua Tails, 5 to get to the Crunch, so it's a very, very strong Pokemon. I do think there's some real credence to potentially running Sludge Bomb in this meta. I think that you might run that instead of Crunch, and that will really help you out, especially against the Galarian Rapidash, but also just gives you a pretty good neutral damage as well across the board. But Drapion, definitely the best in class over there. Shatter Drapion if you can. Bottom left-hand corner, we have this sort of mixed mash group where we've got the Sableye with the brand new, well, sort of addition to its move pool, Dazzling Gleam, which is getting a buff. We don't know its exact stats yet, but we'll find out pretty soon. Dazzling Gleam is really going to help it out against these fighters. Foul Play also getting, I would call it a buff, because it is becoming even spammier than it was in the past, and so Sableye is going to be pretty good against those, and also have some play into those DarkPoisons as well. Hakamo-o is kind of just there because it does so much dragon, just dragon neutral damage, and it also has access to Brick Break. I'd sort of say it is the worst of the three, and then Mandibuzz just has so much, it's got so much bulk, and it's got so much ability to really push itself through the meta. It's obviously anti-fighter. It's got really good play into the other dark types, and also Galarian Slowbro, because it's going to be taking super effective damage. And then, obviously, none of the three are going to do well against the Charmer / Fairy / Psychic group, as we talked about before. Bottom right-hand corner, the fighters, they're there to beat the Dark Poisons majorly. Medicham isn't going to be as good as the other three. I kind of just put it here because Dynamic Punch is getting buffed. Technically, we don't know how good it's going to be. It could be stupid good, unlikely. To be honest, Primeape and maybe even Pangoro are probably the big two here. I think Primeape has a lot of credit to its name because of it having access to that Rage Fist, with the benefit of not being weak to Dark type damage like Annihilape is. So I think Primeape is going to be the primo fighter there if you can give it a run. And then, so I sort of feel like there's going to be a lot of Galarian, Rapidash, Primeape, a Drapion, maybe a Sableye, Mandibuzz, sort of throwing around, I suppose, which brings us to the core breakers. Core breakers down below us, we obviously have Morpeko, who is one of the sort of, I guess, not necessarily glassiest, but one of the sort of punchiest Pokemon in the entire meta. Everything is scared of a Morpeko, especially when it gets a little bit ramped up, and this meta has a lot of Pokemon. They're going to be taking super effective damage from Morpeko. Either Psychic Fangs that is going to add up against the fighters. We've got the Aura Wheel that is going to be either electric or dark, depending on, which time you throw it. The dark is obviously going to hit the Psychics. The electric is going to hit things like Mandibuzz for massive damage, while also just doing mass damage across the board. It is definitely going to be a pretty scary Pokemon that is going to be core breaking a lot of teams. Alolan Raichu kind of feels like a downgrade when we just talked about Morpeko, to be honest with you. It's just not as good, but it still has access to Wild Charge, so it can do a lot of damage across the board, and it's been pretty decent in the past, but, it's probably not going to be that great in the grand scheme of things. We've got Grumpig, who is also being given a double buff in this brand new Might and Mastery season. It's being given Psywave, Dynamic Punch, and Shadow Ball is going to be its sort of brand new moveset, which obviously gives you a lot of coverage across the board as well. I'm not necessarily sold on Grumpig, and it probably doesn't do that well in this particular meta because it is pure Psychic, but it's there, it's an option, and I definitely think that there are going to be some content creators putting out some Grumpig videos for sure. And then last pick is Claydol, a Pokemon that has received buff after buff after buff, year after year after year. They really want to give Claydol as many tools as it can. It's finally reached the top 20 on the Great League PvPoke rankings, but it's still not going to be awesome in this meta. The benefit you get from Claydol is that it has access to Mud Slap, so you are going to be hitting those Dark Poisons for pretty decent damage, while also having coverage for pretty much everything in the meta. So I don't think it's going to be a bad pick in this particular cup, but I do wonder if there might be better picks potentially. But I mean, that really just brings you back to the fact that it is a core breaker. It is there to really bust up teams and especially be really annoying with the ability to potentially run Rock Tomb to get a guaranteed debuff against any of your opponent's Pokemon. So, and it just got a buff as well going into this brand new season. So I think there's a lot to sort of a lot to chew on here, but it's at the whole, at its core, it is a very simple meta, and so I think it is going to be a bit of fun to just break in the first week, of course, alongside the Open Great League. But with that said, let me know if I've missed anything major in the Willpower Cup, if you think that there are any additions, any big Pokemon that are really going to crush the meta, and of course, any feedback below. But with that said, thank you to my patrons and supporters on YouTube as well. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next one. A lot more videos to come in this brand new meta because it is going to be crazy. So thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, especially that subscribe one, and I'll see you in the next one.